everybody gets days where, they hate their job or things are not going well or they might be a bit lower than they normally are. It's just hard to kind of tell people that that's how you feel almost every minute of every day. And I felt like my energy, it's just taking all of my energy just to get through the day, never mind thinking about what I wanted to be doing and how to get out of it. That was way past me.
This is the Happen to Your Career podcast with Scott Anthony Barlow.
We help you stop doing work that doesn't fit you, figure out what does, and make it happen.
We help you define the work that is unapologetically you and then go get it.
If you feel like you were meant for more and you're ready to make a change, keep listening.
Here's Scott.
Here's Scott.
Here's Scott.
Since 2013, we've talked with many thousands of people about their career changes, about how they're thinking about work, about what has been great, what has been terrible, and everything in between. So consequently, we get a lot of insight into how people struggle with career change as well as how they're successful in career change. Something I found really fascinating is when people have been struggling in the wrong career, in the wrong roles that are unfulfilling for many years, not just like 1 or 2 or 3 years, but many, many years, maybe even changing roles multiple times.
So it kind of like, just what are you complaining about? This is just, you've got it all. Don't just get over it. It just must be a phase that you're going through. And then the other side of that is I just really did not know what another option was or what I wanted.
That's Louise McNee. She went to business school. She worked a series of business operations jobs that, as you'll be able to hear, weren't totally satisfying for her. She does a great job explaining how it felt to be unhappy at work and how difficult it was to understand why she was so unhappy or to even explain it to other people like her loved ones. This is incredibly isolating. That sense of loneliness can actually be an obstacle in itself to career change. That whole, I'm the only one who feels this way. What's wrong with me? And the truth is that it's a very common experience. Louise talks about that lonely feeling later on in this episode. So stay with us. It's something that anyone thinking about career change absolutely needs to hear. Here's Louise explaining where everything started out for her.
So I started out, and it's quite a sad story, really. When somebody asks you what you want to be when you're little, and I don't actually know why, but I said I wanted to be an accountant.
Really? Are you the only one in the world that said that when you were?
I believe so, and I don't know whether I should admit to it or not. But I think I was about age 6. And my background, I'm the first in my family to go to university and to do professional qualifications. So I don't really know where this idea came from, but I used to enjoy counting. My mum and dad used to collect copper coins, and I used to enjoy counting then. So I don't know where that came from.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's quite sad. I didn't want to be a hair hostess or any of those other exciting jobs that people.
Yeah, what are the ones people that I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a doctor, I want to whatever else. And I said accounting in jest. I actually know a bunch of people that absolutely love accounting. I don't personally, and I don't have the strengths that are very suitable for accounting, but I think that that's super cool. And I love how unique that is, that 8 years old, you're like, I want to be an accountant.
I probably couldn't have told you what one did, but yeah, that's how I started. So I did, business studies at university, went through, and I've had a very linear career path. And there's probably wasn't a huge amount of thought into my path. And I mean that in terms of, I was just in that traditional, you get a job, you work hard, you get promotion, you move up, you do a slightly different job. And that's kind of what I've done. So I started off studying CIMA, so Chartered Management Accountants. And I just moved through roles of, with job descriptions of management accountant, financial accountant. And yeah, I just did that. Every move was a promotion and a chance to do new skills. But over the last 15 years or so, I've pretty much been in the same in the same career, just moving from, I don't do any day-to-day transactional stuff now. So I've moved from having to actually make sure the P&L is okay or looking at balance sheets. I hate that. That's not where my motivation lies. So thankfully, that's all moved away. That's been learned, done, helped me to be where I am today. And now it's moving towards the strategic and the real business conversations.
When did you realize? I'm curious, like where along the way did you have some of those realizations that, hey, you know, going from, hey, I'm 8 years old and want to be an accountant to moving into it and starting to realize that I actually don't really like the balance sheet type stuff. Do you remember any specific moments where you had that realization?
No, I just think looking back, I just knew that there was parts of my job that really frustrated me. And there's probably no specific moment, and it's probably maybe only over the last 3 to 4 years that I've really thought about, why do I get frustrated or what's not motivating me? And then it's kind of, I just don't like that day to day, because the situation may change, the industry may change, but what you're actually doing doesn't change. So for me, I just got really bored.
So after you recognized that you were getting bored, then what happened from there? Because you sounded like, you know, that was 3 or 4 years ago at this point. And what ended up happening from there in your career as you acknowledged, hey, look, this kind of sucks and I don't want to do this forever. It might be somebody's gig, but it's probably not where I want to spend the vast majority of my time. What happened at that point?
Yeah, so the first time I started thinking about this, it probably, or definitely wasn't in the way I think about it now. So it was, right, okay, this is boring me. It's not happening for me. Let's just go and do it somewhere else. It's going to be completely different in a new business. So I had an opportunity to work for a company which the role had never existed before. So it was a startup element of a huge corporate global company. And they'd never needed somebody locally to look at the stuff that I look at. So I kind of thought that would be a nice avenue to move away, try something different, and see if I could craft that role myself and make it do what I want to do. And I was promised that it would be a mix of the transactional and strategic. So I was like, this is great. You know, it's the perfect opportunity for me to get that experience and really up what I can say to people, that this is what I do, and really prove that I do more than the typical accountant. Didn't actually work out that way.
I was going to ask you how it happened in reality. It sounds like there's another shoe dropping here someplace.
Yeah, I think, and it was a huge learn for me as well. And it has really made me, since when I've had interviews for other company, it's really made me go to that thought of, you interview the company as well. They just don't interview you. And the lesson for me there really helped in the fact that, I really needed to draw down into a bit more detail, because while the intention was there, they just weren't at the stage ready to have that person who was ready to do what I wanted to do, and which I'd kind of done throughout my career. It's always been a part of my role to do the challenging, the asking the questions, the looking at things a slightly different way. But yeah, it seemed the day-to-day dragged me down more than I thought it would, or more than they thought it would as well. And that it also wasn't a very good environment. And it's the first time I think I've been in an environment that I really struggled with.
In what way? What made the environment there such a struggle for you?
Yeah, the culture. The culture was very, very different. I was the only female on a leadership team.
Yeah.
And they weren't quite ready, I think. And they
weren't quite ready for a female on the leadership team? Is that what you...
somebody who has maybe a female leader who had strong thoughts and wasn't afraid of disagreeing with people.
Yeah.
The company had, and it might not have been entirely female, although there was an element of that because I wasn't the only person who went through the same experience. But
yes,
it was a lot of people have been working together for a long time, had been in similar industries for a long time. And so their thought patterns had kind of automatically convened. And so, I come in, I've worked for multiple different industries. I've changed jobs quite regularly. And so I come in with a whole new different set of thoughts and ideas and ways of seeing things. And I don't think they were quite ready for some of my questions.
So you had infiltrated the club and you've got all of these new different experiences and everything else that goes along with it. And at that point in time, it sounds like they were less than what you'd hoped for receptive. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say, yes. So that was the first time that I let career is very, very important to me. It's probably, I've only realized this after working with Lisa over the last year or so, I put so much weight on my career. It kind of defined me in a way. And I think some of that might be because of my, upbringing and the fact that I'm the only one to have done this thing. So nobody else has made me feel this way, but I've put it on me that I had to be great at this. I had to know what I was doing. I had to constantly progress, and that I would just be this one that had it all sorted. And this was the first time that I went, oh, I don't actually like this, and I don't know if I want to be doing this anymore.
That is so interesting. If I might ask you about that for just a second, because I think it's fascinating that when and I've done this a lot of different times in my life too, where I will define who I am in some ways by what it is that I'm doing at that particular time. Often it is also with my career. And it's interesting how that can cause you to, in some cases, like stay in a place longer than you probably should have. So I'm curious, was that what happened there as well? Because it sounds like at some point you recognize that, but how did you think about that once you started to realize that, hey, this definition of myself is causing some less than desirable pieces?
Yeah, there's probably two things to it. One is, you just tell yourself, suck it up. You kind of just, absolutely. You're in a really good position compared to other people. Your salary is great. You're working for big name companies. You've had progression. When you go and speak to people, it's taken me a long time to kind of be able to be proud of my achievements and be able to sell them to people rather than underplaying them. So it kind of like, oh, just what are you complaining about? This is just, you've got it all. Don't just get over it. It just must be a phase that you're going through. And then the other side of that is I just really did not know what another option was or what I wanted. And that was one of the hardest things. And so even from this role, I moved again to another company and did almost exactly the same role. Yeah. I still went through that. It must be the company. It's the company that's making me feel this way, not the actual role. But because I just did not know what else to do. I did not know if there was another career out there for me. I didn't know how to get out of it. So I just stayed in it.
What was that like? Because that's, still semi-recent for you. Mm-hmm. But what was that like being in that particular place where you didn't know, but realized that something's wrong?
Yeah, really hard because it happened again in the role afterwards. So this was 2 roles in a row that I was having these feelings, and I felt so trapped, and it really impacted. I'm normally a happy, bubbly person. My friends would say that I'm always up for a laugh. I'm the one that kind of will try and look on the positive side. And I went the complete opposite. I was a nightmare. Now, I wasn't quite married at the time, but my poor husband, I've never cried so much because I just felt completely trapped and not knowing what to do. And as well as I normally pride myself on being the tough one.
Yeah.
So for me to and I couldn't even tell him at points why I was crying. Because when you're trying to articulate to people why you're feeling how you're feeling, if you're trying to give examples, I found a lot, they sound really minor when you're trying to give examples, because it's hard to explain to people why you're feeling the way you are. It's just when you add it all up together in a big bucket, and it's obviously making you feel so bad. But I found it really hard to not only understand myself, but also to explain to other people. So I felt like I was in a cycle of, I didn't have anybody, or I felt like I wasn't explaining to people well enough so that they could help me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, it's hard to understand. I mean, let's be honest. Even when you're in it and you're experiencing it, it's hard to understand for yourself to be able to really truly get what's going on, let alone be able to help other people understand as well. Because in some ways too, especially if you have done well and you have been continuously moving up the ranks, you've done a lot of things that most people would look at from the outside and say, wow, she got an amazing life and career and everything else along those lines. And it is difficult to be able to articulate that in a way that really helps people understand what's going on from the inside, looking out.
Yeah, especially because people, everybody gets days where, they hate their job, or things are not going well, or they might be a bit lower than they normally are. It's just hard to kind of tell people that that's how you feel almost every minute of every day. And I felt like my energy, it's just taking all of my energy just to get through the day, never mind thinking about what I wanted to be doing and how to get out of it. That was way past me, because it was such hard work to get up in the morning, get in the car, drive to work, do a full day at work, and get home and feel like I'd managed to get through the day.
We see this really interesting phenomenon as we've worked with people over the years. And we see that for that exact reason, it really starts to compound, and actually it turns an already complex and frustrating problem into an even much larger and more complex one too, because not only are you doing exactly what you described, like you're in a role where it's totally zapping your energy, and at the same time, it's difficult to be able to explain it to other people, understand what is going on, but then even trying to think about what to do about it after you've already spent day after day after day where your energy is zapped and is taking all of those pieces of you, then it turns into this bit of a cycle where, and we call this the stuck cycle again and again. But I'm curious, what happened where you decided, look, I've got to do something differently, and how did you begin to get out of this?
Yeah, I think I've always been my personality, I've always been really big into self-development, doing other things, challenging myself. So I do naturally have that mindset of, I don't like to sit and complain about stuff.
Yes.
And not do something about it. That's just me. But I think and it's quite, this being completely open, and it's quite vulnerable for me to be open. I was out for dinner with my husband. Let's say we weren't married then, but we were planning the wedding, and I was crying in the restaurant.
Yeah.
And it's like,
wow.
This is not what life is. This is not, we're trying to plan the wedding. I've got so many exciting things to be looking forward to. Why am I crying in a public restaurant, embarrassing me? And, my poor husband didn't know what to do.
He sounds like that is the ultimate test, by the way. Clearly, you've got a good guy.
Yeah, he's been very good, and I think it was really hard for him as well, because when we met, as I say, I've always portrayed that I've got things sorted. Yeah. Career is really important, and so he saw a change from the person he met, somebody who was really strong, knew where she was going, had everything in her sights, enjoyed life, to this person who's like, why are you crying again?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
He still married me, so thankfully he's definitely a good one.
That's funny. There's a test. Might be hard to duplicate that exact test, but if you find yourself in that place and they react this way, you've got a good one.
Yeah, and it took him, he really tried to understand. He does a similar role to me now. He came through it in a different way. He did the audit background. I've never done audit. So I think in one way it was harder for him to understand because he does that role. He was having the same experience as me, but it wasn't impacting him in the way that it was impacting me. And I just got to that point where I thought, this is not me. I've been crying on friends. I've been crying on Mark. Down the line, but I can remember Lisa and I had our mock interview session booked in.
Yeah.
And I just derailed it completely because the minute she said hello, I burst out crying.
So to give people a little bit of context, at some point along the way, as you recognized that you wanted to make changes, we got the pleasure of working with you and Lisa, who's one of the coaches on our team.
Yes, I did. And it took me a while to get to that point of asking for help.
What took that? What did you perceive as the hardest part to get to that point of asking for help, like you're talking about?
So I think for me, it was just, I thought I had to figure it all out myself. It's that kind of vulnerability and saying to somebody, I don't actually know, and being open. And so for months, I listened to the podcast on my way to and from work. I'd be listening and be thinking, yeah, this sounds really great. This is something I definitely need. But actually, writing that email or making that step to actually say, I need this, was somehow really hard for me. So I remember having as I said, I've also got that fundamental part of me that doesn't just like to let things carry on. Once I know that something needs to be changed, I will kind of know I need to change it. And I was one of my younger brother, he's only a few years younger than me, but he said something to me once which always resonated with me. He said, things might not work out the way you want them to work out, but you've never not done what you wanted to do. You've always found a way. You've just got to remember that it might be a different way to what you wanted it to be. And that, for that, I don't know if my brother knows how much that's resonated with me and stuck with me. And so for me, that was that, right, okay, I know I need to change. I know I need help. I can't do this on my own. I have to let my pride, maybe is not the right word, but I have to let that go a little bit and say to somebody, I need help. So it actually I think I had a few conversations, or I got in touch and discussed working on career change bootcamp, and then I got a little bit of the cold feet and I backed off.
Yeah. And
I went on holiday, and then just the thought of actually going back to work after that holiday, it was like, I can't do it. I've only been away for 2 weeks, but I really need to be serious about this now and do something about this. And that's when I finally thought, right, I'm committed. I'm going to get some help.
That is so interesting. And I think that is so real world. And I appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of times that's how it happens for most of us. It happens in stages. It's not like this epiphany at the top of a mountain, I don't know, after whatever. And all of a sudden, like we know what we're going to do, and we know how we're going to get help, and we know how we're going to like make it all happen and everything else along those lines. That really happens in those smaller realizations. And then that event leads to another event and another event. And then all of a sudden we're at the point where it's like, okay, I've got to do something, but it's all of the other pieces that got you to that point as well. So I so appreciate you sharing that. So here's a different question though. And I'm super curious. You ended up working with Lisa and had a lot of these realizations along the way. What caused you, or what do you feel like allowed you to make the most headway on this, aside from some of the realizations that you had? Because now you're in this new role, and it didn't happen by magic. It was a bunch of hard work. You and I, before we hit the record button too, said, hey, when you're in the moment, it really just feels like a lot of hard work in some ways, right?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I think the real realization, and this is where Lisa was worth her weight in gold, it was the realization that I don't have to go from a bad situation to the perfect situation straight away. I just wasn't in that place, going back to my mental and emotional state, trying to do. So I did go and I spoke to, 10 or 20 people in the areas I thought I wanted to do, in the companies I wanted to work with. I was doing all of that. And that was really, really beneficial for me, but it wasn't getting me into a good place. And so a conversation with Lisa was, right, okay, how do we get you into a place where you can then start thinking about that? Because going from that to that is not working. My brain could not cope with the thought process of, I needed to get out of my mental state of where I was at the moment. I needed to get out of a company and a role that wasn't making me fulfilled and was perpetuating this, negative vibe. And so that was where the planning of, okay, so what's really important to you really came into place. So for me, there was a couple of key buckets. So when you look at, culture of a company, location of a company, whether there's a different type of industry, whether, flexibility plays a part. And also for me, I have a huge social conscience. So I do quite a fair bit of mentoring through charities. And so we decided that the best route for me at the time was to get myself into a really good company that ticked off those items.
Yeah.
And then we can potentially think about longer term, see how I feel about the role in a new company that does tick off those items. So it kind of, everything flowed through. I went to speak to, lots of different people, and I spoke to people in charities and foundations, and worked out really quickly that wasn't the avenue for me, because they have a lot of transactional day-to-day niggly frustrations that would just move me from having that scenario somewhere to somewhere else.
Yes.
Plus, the pay, the salary isn't exactly where I needed it to be. I had conversations with people who we started talking about where I might want to go. And there was one lady who asked me to create a pitch deck. And she really worked with me, and Lisa worked with me as well, to kind of create this 5 or 6 page deck that would explain who I am, what I want, very succinctly, but also in the most effective, strong way.
Yeah.
And all these things really help get towards, I was applying for jobs, and I was going for some interviews, and I was in the interview, and it all helped me to sell myself better in that interview. But it also helped me to recognize, I don't think I want to work here. I'm going to be moving again to a company where it might not be the right fit for me.
Now, tell people, before we even get too far into this, you've very recently made a change. So tell people a little bit about what you will be doing, what you're doing right now.
So I'm a commercial manager. I've just started working for a great company. It's actually a radio station here in Australia. So it's a completely different industry than I've worked in before. And commercial manager, the role kind of gets people confused sometimes, as people are not entirely sure exactly what that is, or
what companies. Does a commercial manager do? What is that even?
Even in different companies in Australia, people use the job title in a different way. So the easiest way I can explain it is probably as an internal business advisor.
Yeah.
So it's helping the business, monitoring the financial and strategic implications of what they're doing in the company. You can imagine, and this probably happens to a lot of people, when you're in a company, you just want to run and you want to get things done and you want to move, and there's not really much thought behind, is this going to work, or what will happen if it doesn't work? What kind of protections can we put in place?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my role, to help the company kind of make sure that they can move fast, but that we're not just going all in and, it's risky all over the place. And so at the end of last year, so I've only been in my current role for just under 3 months now. At the end of last year, this opportunity came up, and it kind of excited me from a company perspective. As I said, being a radio station, it's got that different vibe. And so
yes.
I've got myself into a situation now where I've probably ticked off 5 of my main things, and boxes of what a company, location, the culture needs to be for me. So the culture on the radio station is amazing.
Here's what I'm curious about. After going through all of that, What advice would you offer people that are in that same place that you've been, where maybe they've changed roles a couple of times and found themselves close to back in the same place, or maybe they're realizing for the first time that I really do want something more, and it is okay for me to want something different than where I'm at. What advice would you give those people?
Yeah, I would say you have to take the pressure off yourself. And it's easier said than done sometimes, but it's, I think, we all put the pressure on ourselves. I think in a lot of situations, it's not other people putting the pressure on us, it's us putting the pressure on ourselves. So take the pressure off, but really think about, I found, because you have to think about not just the role, but the people. You've got to think about everything. Because I remember when I did the, what does your ideal day look like? I felt like I was being a bit spoiled by saying certain things. I want to be able to wake up whatever time in the morning I want to wake up, and I want to be able to have a cup of tea in bed before I go to work, and really get down into those details, because it's not those, for me, I find that it's not those details as such that will make you, having a cup of tea before you go to work in the morning is not going to make you figure out what's going on, but you find a pattern in what you actually really need in your day to get through the day in the most positive, fulfilled way. So, for me, I needed to know what kind of people I wanted to be around. And so, I would say take the pressure off, really get down into the detail. And one of the things for me was kind of realizing that potentially, which is so different from where I was, when I come from making career everything.
Yes.
I've now realized that for me, career can't be everything.
Interesting. That is, so what I would love to wrap up on that. What does it need to be in your particular life? So
in career for me, or my role is take the fundamentals out of the way. It's what's going to pay me to make me be able to live. It's going to have, I do need a bit of structure in my day. So it will give me a bit of structure in my day. It will get me around people. I do need to be around people. I need to have those conversations. I'm not one who I love working from home every now and again on my own, but I really need that connection. But it's, for me, knowing, especially because I'm in the same role that I've been doing over the past couple of years, it gives me that comfort of, I know what I'm doing. Yes, I'm going to get new challenges, but it's probably more challenges of how to influence people or how to make people go a certain way or think about things differently. It gives me that stability to then experience and explore other parts of my life that are really important to me. So, as I said, I've got that social conscience. So I'm going to pick up another mentee. So I'm going to, if I've got the time, if I've got a role that's, at the moment, thankfully I can do, not quite, but I can do 9 to 5. So that gives me so much time then to spend time to help other people that at one point I thought would be good to go down as a career, but I don't think it is the right career for me, but I can still get it in my life now because I've got the time and I've got the energy. From a learning perspective, I've had it on my list I used to be fairly fluent in French, but haven't spoken French for about 15 years. We're going on holiday to France in September, so I now have a goal that I want to be fluent by September. So I have now got amazing. The time to speak to, I'm now having lessons.
That is very cool.
I feel like I've got myself into a situation where I'm in a healthy state, and I've realized that I can get fulfillment through other areas and not just through work. I've got the time to spend with my husband and with my friends and be there. I live in Australia, my family are in the UK, so I have to make a lot of effort to keep in touch with family and friends. But I'm in a position now where I can do that and I can feel good about what I'm doing. And I am getting what I need mentally. I'm learning. I've got the comfort of work in a role that I feel comfortable doing. It's a new company, so obviously I'm still in that stage of everything's new and I'm kind of trying to settle in. But I feel like there's 3 or 4 different streams of my life now that I can work in. And my company is setting up a foundation. It's a social foundation. So you never know where that might go. I can hopefully spend a lot of time towards that as well. And then that links my desire to do good in the world in my workplace.
I absolutely love that. And I so appreciate you pointing that out too. And that mindset change is huge.
Oh, yes.
In terms of looking at not just your career as being the thing, but having it enable all the parts of your life and having those work together. So I just want to say congratulations, first of all, because I've only gotten to congratulate you by email so far. And this is amazing to be able to have the opportunity to talk to you about this. And I so appreciate you taking the time to share with everybody else. And I know that so many people are going to benefit from this. Nice work, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, as I said, it's only when you step back and realize how much work you've done that you can then go, I've done this. Yeah, this was good.
Most of the episodes you've heard on Happen to Your Career showcase stories of people that have taken the steps to identify and land careers that they are absolutely enamored with, that match their strengths and are really what they want in their lives. If that's something that you're ready to begin taking steps towards, that's awesome. And we want to figure out how we can help. So here's what I would suggest. Take the next 5 seconds to open up your email app and email me directly. I'm going to give you my personal email address, scott@happentoyourcareer.com. Just email me and put conversation in the subject line. And when you do that, I'll introduce you to someone on our team who can have a super informal conversation with, and we'll figure out the very best type of help for you, whatever that looks like, and the very best way that we can support you to make it happen. So send me an email right now with conversation in the subject line. Here's a sneak peek into what we have coming up in store for you next week.
I had learned over the previous 10 years that I could be whoever I wanted to be. I mean, I had worked in a new industry every couple of years. I had built companies from the ground up, and I kind of felt like there was no challenge I couldn't take on as long as it felt in alignment with the way that I wanted to work.
Imagine reaching the pinnacle of your career field, only to walk away and pursue something entirely new, something that sparks your curiosity and excites you instead of simply following the expected next step of your career. Now, imagine doing that not once, not twice, but many times. Today's guest has done exactly that. She's gone from attorney to marketing director to head of business to chief operations officer. She's even been a professional certified coach guiding others on their own career paths. Here's the kicker. She never had to start over. She was able to run towards roles that lit her up and evolve her career into iterations that fit her better and better every time. I think it's time to rethink what it means to have a successful career. Maybe the job that you once loved is starting to feel stale, yet you're still holding on. But what if outgrowing each role you take on and running towards something that excites you is actually the key to building a fulfilling career? All that and plenty more next week right here on Happen to Your Career. Make sure that you don't miss it. And if you haven't already, click subscribe on your podcast player so that you can download this podcast in your sleep and you get it automatically, even the bonus episodes, every single week, sometimes multiple times a week. Until next week, adios. I'm out.